As organisms that belong to the clade Mammalia, it is deeply ingrained within us to care for our children. For many tens of millions of years, mammals have evolved to mature out of adolescence relatively slowly, at least when compared to other animals like fish, or insects, and many reptiles. Our newborn mammalian children are mostly helpless. I mean, sure, you've got some ungulate newborns that can walk within minutes of being born, like horses or giraffe, but other species, like virtually all feliforms and caniforms and many primates, give birth to helpless babies that can't even open their eyes yet, let alone hunt for food and reliably avoid predators. This mammalian dynamic of a slow maturation, including a resource-intensive weaning period, has given us our titular trait, no pun intended. We evolved mammary glands, specifically to feed our slow-growing offspring during this prolonged period of juvenile dependence. Now, just to be clear, parental care is not a trait exclusive to mammals. We all know about birds that build nests and tend to their hatchlings, and there's also a sizable number of reptiles that also care for their offspring, instead of just burying their eggs and leaving forever, like a lot of other reptiles do. Parental care is a trait that takes many forms, in many different species. Now, the fascinating news that I want to tell you about today involves the discovery of two lizard-like creatures preserved together in the stump of a plant, in what is now Nova Scotia, Canada. This discovery is really impressive, because not only is it a new species, named the Dendromya unamachiensis, but also because of what it implies about the evolution of parenting. Now, in biological terms, parental care refers to any general behavior that helps the offspring survive, like building nests and guarding eggs and other basic stuff like that. Parental care also involves feeding, nurturing, and grooming the offspring after they've hatched, or after they're born. And most obviously, it also includes protecting the offspring from predators. The two lizard-like creatures fossilized in the stump belong to a larger clade called Varanipids. And these two lizards appear to be a parent and offspring, engaged in some kind of parental care activity. The younger and smaller Varanipid was underneath the older, larger one. Specifically, it was underneath a leg bone, and it was encircled by the older creature's tail. The researchers who wrote up a study on the discovery suggested that the two animals were curled up together in their den, which was carved out of the tissue of a lycopsid plant. Hilary Madden is an assistant professor at Carleton University in Canada, and she was a co-author of the study. Miss Madden said, quote, "The adult probably would have been about 20 centimeters in length, from the tip of the snout to the base of its tail, and it would have had a long tail," unquote. The parent's long tail curls around the offspring, and this protective curling behavior is a natural and instinctive and frequently observed form of defensive parental care. Steve Brusada is a paleontologist at the University of Edinburgh. Steve was not involved in the study, but he did comment on the finding. Mr. Brusada said, quote, "The discovery of an adult and a much smaller juvenile side by side is good evidence that they were interacting with each other in life, as it would be quite the coincidence for them to randomly die, get buried, and fossilize together. And although it's always tricky to infer behavior from fossils that are hundreds of millions of years old, to me, this seems to be good evidence that there was parental care going on," unquote. Now, the reason that this is news, the reason why it's so cool, is because it's the oldest evidence to date of parental care in tetrapod animals. Parental care is believed to have first evolved in ancestral mammalian lineages about 260 million years ago. But this discovery from about 300 million years ago pushes that back by about 40 million years. Curiously, the evidence from the 260 million years ago fossil was also from a Varanipid, just like this new discovery. However, there is still some debate as to whether or not the Varanipids were part of the lineage that would give rise to mammals, or if they were part of the lineage that would give rise to reptiles. The traditional view, backed up by the most evidence and supported by most scientists, is that the Varanipids gave rise to the mammals. Thus, this study shows, as Miss Madden explains, that parental care behavior emerged very early in mammalian evolution. She also suggested that parental care behavior in birds, and in some reptiles, must have evolved independently. Mr. Brusada also added, quote, "It's incredible to think that something we consider so human, parents taking care of children, was developed so long ago, in such distant ancestors, when the world was so much different." Unquote.